Welcome everybody to this month's GPS Training Podcast. It's our 8th episode, and on today's podcast it's myself, who is John, and Andy's with us again.
Hello.
Fantastic. As always, we're streaming it live on Facebook, so if you don't like our Facebook page, please go along to GPS Training. Just put GPS Training into Facebook and like our Facebook page. What we're hoping to do in the future as well, we're going to maybe next month stream it live on YouTube. So that's our next step. So we're going to start doing that next month. So again, if you want to see what we look like, you'll be able to go onto our Facebook page, but we'll also put a copy of it on YouTube, more than likely on Sunday or Monday at the very latest. So without further ado, let's get on today with today's podcast. In today's podcast, we're going to look at the following. We're going to look at the new Topo Great Britain Pro 1 to 50,000 mapping from Garmin, which was launched last week. We're going to look at the SatMap Active 20 unit software update. A number of things have changed. We're going to discuss what's changed there. Garmin Basecamp, the update is just around the corner, so we're going to look at some of the things you need to do before that update. We've got Andy's top tips, both SatMap and Garmin. And then finally, we're going to look at our video top tips that we do every week in the GPS Training online resource. So the first story is Garmin's new map card, Topo Great Britain Pro 1 to 50,000. Last week, after a long wait, but more about that later, Garmin launched their 2018 map card, and it's modelled on the more expensive 1 to 25,000 brother or sister, the Topo Great Britain Pro 1 to 25 map set. So Andy, what's changed about this new map card?
Yep, so the new map card that's just been launched by Garmin came out last week. So we're in 2018. The previous map card was dated 2015. We're normally used to Garmin releasing a new map card every 4 years, because Ordnance Survey tend to update a quarter of the country every year, and then every 4 years Garmin get an update. So this one's actually came out a little bit earlier, so it's only been 3 years. But the main reason for that is Garmin have been working on a new feature that they brought out with the Topo Pro 1 to 25 mapping in 2016 for this new map card, the 1 to 50 map card, which is what we call routable trail data on the footpath networks within the national parks. So this is a new feature that we've not had on a 1 to 50 map card before from Garmin, that lets you, if you're walking in any of the 14 national parks in Great Britain, you can get the unit to snap onto footpaths and trails. And there's, I think on the spec, there's actually 58,000 kilometres of footpath trails being mapped by Ordnance Survey and Garmin that let you snap this route onto the footpath. It
is the way forward. It's the way we're now going. I think we're going to look back in 2 or 3 years' time and go, actually, do you remember when we used to do direct routing all the time? It's a fantastic feature. I did a review of the Topo Pro 1 25,000, I think in last podcast before, and I'm totally in love with this turn-by-turn route. It's brilliant.
I mean, it's turning your unit into the car SatMap nav experience for on the trails. So currently within the mapping that Garmin do, the Ordnance Survey mapping, you've always had routable data on the road network. Yeah. So if you're a cyclist, it's always let you snap on the roads, but it's giving you that experience now where you can just mark somewhere further ahead on a footpath and say, take me there. It snaps the route for you. And of course, I didn't mention you get turn-by-turn arrows if your GPS has been set up correctly, telling you where to turn left and where to turn right.
You kind of get your trip notes, don't you? As such, your own route notes. So in the olden days, when you had memory map, you get the route notes. It gives you that route note. You'll go along the path for a mile and then turn left. It's brilliant, isn't it?
And also, just a small bit they've added onto this mapping, but John will like this because he's a visitor to the Isle of Man. On the previous 1 to 50 map card, you didn't have the Isle of Man. Now, it was actually a free download from Garmin, but the new map card covers all of Great Britain. So we've got England, Scotland, Wales, but it now actually has mapping for the Isle of Man as well.
The best walking place in Great Britain, isn't it? Or the UK, because it's not Great Britain, it's UK. So because we do walking holidays there, that's why we say that. So we do walking holidays with Shepherd's Horse holidays in the Isle of Man. So we've got a trip out there in about a month's time.
So Isle of Man's added to that map card as well.
Fantastic. And then the famous or infamous hiking option, we can now use it. So one of the common mistakes people used to make when setting up their GPS unit, they never used to set up was direct routing. They used to select hiking. Again, we've discussed this in the past, but now we can use this hiking option. That's what it's there for, isn't it?
Yeah, so if you're not in a national park in Great Britain, you use your GPS in the same way we've always done with the OS mapping. You plan a route by drawing straight lines between points you want to aim for. But as John's mentioned there, with this new feature that you've now got with the 1 to 50 mapping, and we also have with the Topo Pro 1 to 25 mapping, you can set your unit to hiking when you're in a national park, and then as long as you're in one of the national parks, it'll snap on the trails.
But the easiest way that we're finding on a new GPS is actually set up a profile, isn't it? So we've got these profiles now. So what we've been doing this last 2 weeks, since we've got the map card, we've been setting up separate profiles. So what's the benefit of doing that?
So before you send before we send a unit out, we'll set up a profile for you. So when we look at the new generation units from Garmin, so this is things like the eTrex Touch 2535 or Oregon 700 series. When you turn them on, they have these profiles called hiking, mountain biking, cycling, etc. Now the beauty is what used to do with the older units, if you decided you wanted to do a different type of activity, say cycling, you would go into settings, tell the unit you were cycling, you would keep having to change settings back. The beauty now with these newer units, it's dead quick to set up a new profile, which you could call something like Hike National Park, and then you tell it that when you're in a Hike National Park activity, you want it to snap onto the trails by changing settings, which we show on the videos we've done, and it means you're not having to keep chopping, changing settings. You can still do it on the older style units as well, create a new profile. It's just nice to have something that's just for this new mapping rather than you having to keep going in and changing settings.
Yeah, because it might be a while since you're back into a national park. It's just nice because I'm thinking, well, how do I set this up? It's already set up for you. You can just go into that Hike NP profile that you've set up. And we've done some videos, so on our online resource, which we're going to talk about at the end of our last story is actually going to talk about the online resource. But in the online resource, Andy's done some videos for the Oregon 700, 750, haven't you?
On setting up the profiles. And actually, when I get into my tips, I'm going to talk a little bit more about these profiles as well, give you a little bit more information. So we will come back to this feature about adding a profile for the new Topo Pro map cards.
Fantastic. So that's our review. So we really like it. It's kind of what we had in the 125,000. Now we've got in the 150,000. So we have this turn-by-turn routing within national parks. Confusing now because we have Topo Great Britain Pro. It's not even changed yet, has it? They've not changed it, but they are going to change the Topo Great Britain Pro 1 to 25,000, then Topo Great Britain Pro 1 to 50,000. But it's not Topo mapping, it's own and survey mapping. Typical Americanization by Garmin to confuse it. So we're going to let the cat out of the bag here a little bit. We've had this map card since late last year. Me, Andy and I, we received some pre-production map cards late last year. We've been helping Garmin develop this product. It's actually, before anybody says anything, oh, how come you didn't tell us? We actually have to sign a disclosure agreement with Garmin because we are aware of what's happening in the future. So we signed this disclosure agreement, and we got two little map cards. Second class post, Andy. Not the best, hey? Tut Garmin. Second class post, they arrived. And I actually, between Christmas and New Year, because we originally thought it was going to be launched in January. It was January we thought initially. I actually recorded a piece for the podcast that I recorded between Christmas and New Year with this map card, which we're not going to use because actually it was quite moronic because it was cold and snowy, and I was talking about my Christmas lunch, so I thought it wouldn't be very good to slot it into an April podcast. So we've been out with that. It's been interesting, Andy, to work with them because actually it wasn't correct at the beginning, wasn't it? There was a few mistakes taking place for this.
Yeah, I mean it's a big challenge to put routable data for the whole of the footpath network, obviously for all of Great Britain, but even for the national parks it must have been a big challenge, and we found a few little glitches and bugs, but thankfully they've been put right now. So again we got it to test. We tested it in various areas, various national parks, and they're very happy with the product that we've now got. It's
really good. And then to say thank you, they sent us I'm going to tell you this great story. They sent us 2 map cards, and Andy was on holiday last week, and these 2 map cards arrived in a UPS bag, and me being me, I opened this up. Where are these map cards from? They must have come from our supplier who we get our units from. So I promptly sold them. What would I do with anything else? And Andy came back off his holidays, and he says, "Where's those map cards from Garmin?" I said, "Well, I never got any map cards from Garmin." So he emails Garmin this week and says, "Andy, dear Garmin, we've not received our map cards." There was someone called John Monks signed for them last week, and Andy says, "I think they arrived." Oh, I've sold those.
Sold our demonstration map cards.
So
we have taken 2 back out.
We've taken 2 back out of the stock. So I promptly sold the ones we got from Garmin. So yeah, sorry Garmin, and I won't do that again. So we're going to find out more about these new map sets and how they work. If you go to our website, which is gpstraining.co.uk, click on reviews, You will see an article, it says new 2018 mapping now with routable data within the national parks, and you'll find that on the GPS training website. And Annie's done some video reviews of how it works on the unit and also how it works on Garmin Basecamp. I think it's just on the Oregon, well, it's just on the Oregon, so again, you'll understand how you can apply that to whatever unit that you've got. The next thing we're going to cover on today's podcast is SatMap Active 20 unit software updates. So, SatMap did this, I think was it a week last Friday or 2 weeks last Friday? They did it on a Friday night. I couldn't
well, there's been a couple of, SatMap have done a couple of beta software updates in the last couple of months. There was one in February, and then there was one, I think it was on the 27th of March.
Right.
So there's been a couple of recent updates from SatMap. This is for the Active 20 SatMap.
So I just the Active 20, that's right. So it's snap to foot, snap to bike, snap to road, routing and routes, menus, create new profiles. So, Annie's our SatMap expert. What's changed and how is this going to help us as walkers?
Yeah. So what SatMap do on a regular basis, you know, they bring out software updates like any manufacturer does for the units. So in the last couple of months, there's been a couple of software updates. They're what we call beta updates. So that means, to be honest, they haven't been fully tested in the marketplace. SatMap have tested them, then they put them out there. The nice thing is you can always downgrade back to the whatever the last full version of software is. But with these beta softwares, they're adding in lots of new features that, again, eventually will become fully tested. So the ones John's just mentioned there, it brings us on nicely from talking about Garmin having a new map product that lets you snap on the trails. What SatMap have done, if you've got one of the latest beta softwares on your unit, when you go into the route planner screen on the unit, it lets you pick that you want to create a new route on the unit, and you've got the choices of snap to foot, snap to bike, or snap to road.
Now, quick question there. We've just been talking about the Garmin turn-by-turn routing. This SatMap, does it work within outside national parks or just within national parks?
It'll work anywhere, but this is what's very different about the way SatMap are doing this. It's not on the actual map card itself.
Oh, right, okay.
It's what you're basically doing with your SatMap unit. You need to have Wi-Fi connection, so you need to be on a Wi-Fi network. And when you create the route, what the SatMap unit's doing, it's looking at SatMap server to pull that data from their server,
right, okay,
of what they call routable data for either cycling, walking, or I suppose a car journey. But one thing, it is a beta version. It hasn't been fully tested yet. There will be glitches and bugs in it, but it's worth having a look at. Now, the one big difference is it's got the data from the open source, open street market.
Okay.
Whether that'll change, I have a feeling they may look at changing it to data from OS. So the only thing you've got to be careful about if you want to give it a try, if you select the snap to foot option and start creating a route on footpaths, and you've got the ordnance survey mapping on your SatMap unit, and again you've got to be linked to Wi-Fi, you might find it's not snapping on the footpaths that you can see on the ordnance survey map, because it's taking the data from what we call the open source, open street market from SatMap server. I think for road cycling, getting it to snap on the roads, that data is pretty much going to be the same. So I think it's got a way to go, but it's worth having a look at.
And when we're out and about, then could I create a hotspot on my smartphone and then use the data off my smartphone or not?
Yeah. So in the future, how it'll work is, so at the minute I'm talking about you sitting at home with your SatMap Active 20 connected to Wi-Fi from the Wi-Fi page. Now, of course, if you were out and about and realised you hadn't created a route and wanted to create a route using this new function, you need Wi-Fi connectability. What will happen in the future, it's not quite there yet with the beta testing that we've been doing, you'll be able to, using a phone that you've got, if you've got a smartphone that's got Wi-Fi access, using 4G, 3G, you could turn your phone on with the internet access and pair the SatMap to a hotspot on your phone. You just temporarily do that till you've created the route, and then you could turn the Wi-Fi or mobile internet back off your phone. But that's not quite there yet. That is something for the future. That will happen in the future.
It's amazing at the moment, isn't it, how quickly these updates are coming from SatMap. You know, it's the unit's 6 months old, is it? So, is it?
We got them in about August last year,
okay,
wasn't
so
it?
it's a little bit older than that, and we're moving on. No, the software, they're just waterproof computers, aren't they, to keep updating it. So is there anything else from this software update? So we've got this turn-by-turn routing within and outside national parks, which is brilliant, but we'll have a Wi-Fi access to do it. Is there anything else in this update that we can benefit from?
Yeah, so from the latest updates from SatMap on the Active 20, there's 2 or 3 things we've picked up on that we think are really good. So this is if you updated the unit it was about end of February, or the very latest update, the very latest beta update is version 3.11 1.936. So John mentioned that was released on the 27th of March. So if you've got that version in your unit, as well as the snap to trail, a few things we've picked up on. You now have the ability to change data boxes on the trip log screen. You couldn't do that before. So if you've got your SatMap Active 20 and you haven't updated it to one of these new beta versions, when you go to the trip log screen, you've got some really useful data boxes, but they're preset and you can't change them. What you can now do, there's a choice of 72 different options now. So that's one of the other things they've added. They've added some new data fields as well. So we're up to 72 now. You can press down on any of those data boxes on the trip log screen and change them.
Is this a good thing or not? So, do you know what? I always liked the SatMap because you couldn't change anything, and with the Garmin, people used to go in, meddle with everything, and then nothing looked the same. Now with SatMap, we're kind of now changing everything, so we're kind of going a bit like that.
Customers want the flexibility.
Yeah,
and actually, one of the other things I noticed as well, and we have actually done a video on this feature on changing the trip log screen on the online training course, as well as changing the data boxes. Now, I'm doing this from memory. I think there's about 12 data boxes as standard, and some of our customers have said the data boxes are quite small to read. Within this new beta software, as well as changing what you see in the data boxes, you can actually change the layout, so there's less data boxes, but they're much bigger. So you may just want to see 6 things. You know, it could be like your height, the distance you've travelled, your grid reference, etc. You can make those boxes bigger and just have a smaller number.
Gives you flexibility. Anything else that it does?
The other thing I noticed, I mean, there's a massive list on SatMap's website of what they've done and improved, but the other thing that when I went through the list, I always look for things straight away that stand out. It looks like some of the new software that they've released is improving battery life as well, which is always good. I think, like you said, it's a mini computer, so they're looking at the way the SatMap processes data and can we improve that, can we make it extend the battery life. So I noticed one of the benefits of the new software is it's improving battery life.
Fantastic. And that SatMap's got a tremendous. SatMap Active 20's got the best battery on the market already. To improve it, it's just
it's got a large 5,000 milliamp hour battery. But what I would say to you, if you're looking at these new softwares and wondering what they've changed, the best place to find that out is actually if you go to SatMap's website, www.satmap.com. Look under the heading at the top that says support, and then you get an option called software updates, and then you'll be able to see Active 20 software, and it lists everything that they've added to these new softwares, so you'll get a full comprehensive list.
Brilliant. So to summarise then, there's this beta version of software out. It's turn by turn routing, but I saw SatMap are calling this snap to foot, snap to bike, so that's the way it's snapping to the route. It's coming. You have to have Wi-Fi access to use it, and then also in the latest update, as Andy's just said, we can change our data boxes, we can change the fields, we can change it improves the battery life. But as Andy says, if you go onto the SatMap website, you can find out more there.
And I should have pointed out, if you put this beta software on, and you think, oh, I've got a software that's not been fully tested, you always get the option on the Wi-Fi page or via SatSync to roll back to the latest fully tested version, which was released in January. So you always get the option to roll back if you decide you don't want the beta version on your unit.
It's worth doing though, isn't it? I think
I like putting it on to test it. It adds new features and
brilliant. Yeah. Fantastic. So the next thing on today's podcast is Garmin Basecamp. The updates at last are just around the corner. So the first question, Andy, is what's Garmin Basecamp?
Yes, so Garmin Basecamp, if you haven't used it before, with your Garmin GPS device, it's a free piece of software you download from Garmin, and this bit of software goes on a Windows computer, as long as you've got Vista Service Pack 2 or newer, or a Mac computer, as long as you've got operating system 10.10 or newer. And with this software on your computer, with your GPS device plugged into your computer with a USB cable, it lets you view the maps that are on your GPS device, plan routes, mark waypoints on the software to send to your GPS device. It lets you manage what's on your GPS device. So if you've got your GPS full of stuff you don't want anymore, you can easily delete stuff that's on your GPS. I like the fact you can review your track recordings. So with this software again on your computer, you can look at track recordings in your GPS to see where you've walked and cycled. And finally, with the software, I know there's other ways you can do this as well. You can check for updates on your GPS unit as well.
So it's free. So if you're a Garmin user, why wouldn't you be using it? It's free, and you just download it. And again, we've got videos and an online resource to how to get to grips with it. So I'm going to quickly read the statement out from Garmin. There's a copy of this on our website I put on yesterday. So we're still waiting to hear more. But this week, we see the following statement from Garmin. It says, next month, Garmin is releasing new versions of Basecamp that provide improved data security. That's quite topical with what's been going on Facebook at the moment. Yeah. At that time, Garmin retired the cloud storage options. Be sure to export your user data from Garmin Cloud Storage before May the 21st, 2018. In addition, Basecamp allows you to configure your favorite cloud storage provider as a replacement so you can keep your favorite waypoints in the same place you store your other important files. Please note, data will no longer be available from Garmin Cloud Storage after May the 21st, 2018. Detailed instructions for exporting your user data can be found in our FAQs. If you've used Garmin Basecamp with Garmin Adventures, which we'll discuss a little bit by, thank you for your participation in the online community for the past 5 years. It's with sorrow we announce that the end of Garmin Adventures. Any adventures that you've created in Basecamp will remain on your local computer but will be removed from the online community after May the 21st, 2018. You will still be able to create Garmin Adventures on your computer and load them to your Garmin device. See our Basecamp Support Centre content if you need more assistance. Please take action prior to May the 21st, 2018. If you are no longer a current user of this data is already saved elsewhere, please disregard this email. Oh, right, so I'm going to change a few things. So, first of all, got a couple of things to look at here. Garmin, I keep it iCloud, sorry, that's probably a Mac use. Garmin Cloud Storage and Garmin Adventures. So firstly, what's Garmin's Cloud Storage?
Yeah, the Garmin Cloud Storage was a function on Garmin's Basecamp software where you had a login option along the menus along the top, and if you created a Garmin account when you registered your GPS device, you could log in on the Basecamp software, and you had an option where when you saved routes and tracks, you could right click on these routes and tracks that you save on the software and say save to my Garmin Cloud.
And it used to sync across, so you could have that cloud on all your different computers and then it would sync, right?
The idea was if you then went to another computer, you could be away from home, you could log into a friend's computer and log in as yourself and retrieve those routes and tracks. I'll be honest, I didn't have that many customers using it because what we found is when you brought the data back via the cloud onto another computer, it wasn't organised with all the folders you'd created. It was just a list of routes and tracks, and it didn't sync any bird's eye map images or anything like that. But some customers were using it. When I finish this section, I've got a bit I'm going to mention about another way to back up the software that we tend to use. But it was just a way of storing stuff remotely. And obviously with this new update, it sounds like they're going to give you the option to save for safety the stuff that you want to back up onto your own if you already use something like John mentioned iCloud if you're a Mac user.
So if you've never heard of Garmin's Cloud Storage, actually you don't need to do anything because actually more than likely most people have not used it. If you're using it, as Andy says, we need to back this up and then we're ready for this deadline. Garmin Adventures, I'm quite sad to see this go. I like Garmin Adventures, and I know when we do courses second day and we do about Basecamp, I do like Garmin Adventures. So quickly, Andy, what's Garmin Adventures?
Yeah. Garmin Adventures was basically a way where if you've done a recording in your GPS, say, of a walk, you could come back in the software, and in the software you could look at that walk, and you could use an option called Create an Adventure from your walk. And all you do, what an adventure means is you're adding more information about that walk you've just done. It could be photographs, information as in text about how easy the walk was. Is it suitable for someone with young children, someone in a wheelchair, whatever it might be. You could add extra information and then you were able to share it with the Garmin community. In the same way, you could use a search box in the Garmin software, in the Garmin Basecamp, search for, say, a place name, and if there was any Garmin Adventures that other people had done exactly the same as you, sharing a route to walk with photographs and information, you could pull that into the software to send to your GPS device.
Yeah, so I think it's quite. I say it's a way Garmin users would share their routes and walks and things. So I think but I suspect there's some security issues. I think this is maybe why this closing down with the future there.
I mean, the two things they're saying though, if you've already got adventures you've downloaded that weren't yours, they'll stay on your computer. When we say you can create your own adventures, it just means you're looking at a track recording you've done, adding some extra information and some photographs for you to use yourself in the future. So you'll still be able to do that. And just going back to the cloud as well, one thing I was going to mention, what I have a lot of customers doing, I don't know if you realise this was available in Basecamp, but we always recommend you do a hard backup on a regular basis anyway. So on Garmin Basecamp, it's as simple as there's a menu on a Mac or a Windows called File, Backup, and then you just say where do you want to back up the software to. You could back it up to a memory pen, and then to be honest, if you had the backup on a memory pen and you want another computer or a friend's computer, you can use file restore. So you've always had that function, which I'm assuming will still be with the new software, hopefully, just to do a file backup.
As I said initially, it's a while since Garmin's done any work on Basecamp. Is it 2 years since we've had an update?
It's certainly over a year. I mean, if it's getting to 2 years, it could be. So that's for both Basecamp, for Mac and Windows. So hopefully there'll be other things they're going to be adding to the software. We don't know yet, as John said from the statement, but it'd be nice to see if there's other features added, or maybe just improvements. Like the software, really, it is due an update.
Yeah, so I say we just got an email, and we got an email, and then whenever some of the people in the industry, they can forward it onto us, so my inbox on whatever morning it was full of all these statements. So fingers crossed that Garmin utilise this and update other aspects of the software. But again, the statement's on our website, and I'm actually linking to it for the newsletter that's going out in an hour's time. We're going to link to that. So the big deadline is this May the 21st, so it doesn't give us very long. May the 21st, you need to stop using the cloud storage, and if you want to download Garmin Adventures, do that before then, because these things are going to disappear, and we'll more than likely review it in future podcasts and see what the changes are like. Next thing on the podcast is Andy's top tips. So Andy's top tips for both Garmin and SatMap.
So the Garmin tip, it's something we've already mentioned. I'm just going to go into it in a little bit more detail. If you've bought a unit from us now that has this new mapping called Topo Pro, whether it be the 1 to 25 or 1 to 50 version, we recommend that you set up a new what we call the new activity profile if you're using the Oregon 700s or eTrex Touches for the national parks to get the best out of this new mapping. Now, if you're buying a unit from us, we'll actually set that profile up now for if you want, but you may have bought a unit from us and then bought the mapping at a later date, so you need to set up that profile. So basically in your units, if you've got a Garmin new generation Oregon 700 eTrex Touch, you're just going into your setup, and you've got an option in setup called activities. It just says create new activity, and you get the option to give it a name, something like Hike National Park, pick a symbol, and then the main thing is you go in and tell it that you're hiking and the routing. We've done a video showing you how to do this, and it just means if you're using this new Topo Pro mapping and you're in a national park, rather than having to change settings you've already got for when you're not in a national park, you've got a new profile set up. So that's what I'd recommend you do with a Garmin.
And as Andy says, there's a video and an online resource. If you go to our website, gpstraining.co.uk, click on the online resource, and you can log into the online resource, and we've put a video in the top tips, I think Garmin top tips.
So in the Garmin top tips, we've only got it for the Oregon 700 at the minute, but that actually covers the eTrex Touch, and we will, for those of you using an older style, like a Montana or a 64S unit with OS mapping, we are going to show you how you go into basically set up and profiles on that unit. Yeah. We'll be doing some videos in the coming weeks showing you how you set up a profile on those units.
That's brilliant. So that's your Garmin top tip for this month, and SatMap now, Andy.
Yep, so SatMap, again, it's coming on from what we said earlier about checking for updates and these new beta updates. I've had a number of customers call me about when they connect their SatMap Active 20 unit to the Wi-Fi. So what happens is you go onto the Wi-Fi page, you say, connect it, manage your Wi-Fi network, you put in your Wi-Fi password, and then what you'll see at the top of the Active 20 screen, it's just to the right of the screen title page, you get like the little symbol, it's like a series of blue curved conical shapes. It's like that Wi-Fi radar symbol to show that you're connected to Wi-Fi. Yeah. They're a blue colour. Now, what a lot of customers are trying to do is then do the software update, manage updates, and it's not happening. It's not showing that there's any updates available. What you've actually got to do, when you connect your Active 20 to Wi-Fi, it then has to connect and sync with SatMap server. The way you know that it's connected to SatMap server, where you have these blue curved conical, sort of the Wi-Fi radar symbol in the top right of the screen, you'll notice you normally have to leave it on a few minutes. You'll get a little coloured dot, solid dot, appear below those curved conical shapes. That means you're now connected to the SatMap server, and then if you go on to the manage updates and check for updates, it'll let you. When you go onto the Wi-Fi, it doesn't automatically. Sometimes it must depend on what their server's doing. Yeah. You have to just give it a few minutes to connect and look for that little solid dot.
That's brilliant. I never knew that. That's a really good top tip for SatMap users. And we have an extra top tip this month. Comment on our podcast feed from a guy called Ken. Now, I think Ken must be using the 125,000 Topo Pro mapping, because he says, maybe a tip for your next podcast. I was using Basecamp earlier for downloading some walks around Moffat area of Dumfries and Galloway. I couldn't work out why I could not see the OS map on Basecamp with my Garmin connected. It turns out that they're calling this area the north of England rather than southern Scotland. So if people don't know, with the Topo Great Britain Pro, it's not just one map set, is it? It's a 4 or 5.
So this is if you're using the 1 to 25. It's actually the Topo Pro 1 to 25. Or the Garmin Discoverer Premium 1 to 25 mapping.
Yes,
when you go to your maps menu in Basecamp, there's 5 areas like North England and Isle of Man, West England, East England, and obviously there's a couple of, I think there's 2 options for Scotland, but for some reason then Dumfries and Galloway, you have to pick the North England one, so apologies for our Scotland customers. We've decided to put Dumfries in Northern England for some reason, or Garmin have.
That's brilliant. That's on the 125,000 map cards that you get from Garmin. So thank you, Ken, for that. It's very much appreciated. If anybody has a little top tips they come across, just drop us an email and we can incorporate them into future podcasts. And then finally, on today's podcast, we're going to look at our top tips that we produced every week for our online resource. I put this story in, and because yesterday all I did was edit. Andy's very good at creating the videos, and I edit them all. So Andy was over the last couple of weeks created loads of top tip videos, and I just spent yesterday just editing them, uploading them. What we used to do, a little bit of the history of these top tips, we do a Friday newsletter. Hopefully you receive that at 11:45 every Friday, and we used to put 2 top tips down at the bottom. So we did this for a number of years. They were just written top tips. And we kind of sat down, how can we move this forward? Because actually you start recycling those things. So we started, why do we do video top tips? Without really realising the amount of work this would involve. So we started doing video top tips. But we started putting this online resource that we keep talking about that we produce. So we started putting them in there. And they're really good. So actually we've got so many of them now because we do 2 new ones every week. We try and do 1 Garmin, 1 SatMap, but there's something that's big. I know last week we did about the turn-by-turn routing, about setting up the profiles and things. Those were 2 Garmins last week because it was quite big what was going on with the change of the mapping. So we do these top tips and they go in the online resource. So online resource is this area that you can access. You get it free if you buy a GPS unit from us, or it's £25 a year. And again, you just sign up via PayPal. When you log into the online resource, you just go to courses. If you're a Garmin user, Garmin, and then units, Garmin-units, and then there's some Garmin top tips at the bottom. If you're SatMap, you just go to courses, then SatMap, and then you see your SatMap top tips there. And as well as the units, we do ones on Basecamp as well, don't we? So we do Garmin Basecamp, and there's top tips there for Mac users and Windows users. I think we're going to end up putting them actually within the actual product. I think we're going to end up doing that a little bit, because again, we can start off with 1 or 2, but now some of them have got like 10, so you scroll down. So it gives you a really good overview of the key things that that you can use. And I've just written down a few of the things that we've done in top tips, or Andy's done in top tips. Like if you're a Basecamp for Mac users, we're kind of converting a route to a track to remove your waypoints, copying, reversing your route, back up your bird's eye mapping. No, for the Windows user, we've done exporting your track, recording from Basecamp as a GPX file, email to a friend, or as a KML, so you can view it in Google Earth. Garmin units, of course, battery save options for all the units. We've done it for every individual unit. Track back function, again, for every specific unit. SatMap, adjusting the volume and tone settings for both Active 10, 12 and 20. Updating profiles for both the Active 10 and 12 as well. Battery save options for 10, 12 and 20. Updating profiles, this is what we were talking about before on Active 20. Removing the battery. Removing the battery is a little bit awkward, isn't it? So we...
top tip video on how you get the battery out. Yeah.
Active 20, toggle on and off at your primary screen. Fitting and replacing the USB cover. And I uploaded these last night, or yesterday, and I said to Andy, how many videos do you think we have on YouTube? And a lot of them are not listed, so they're not public. Andy guessed, did you say 100? You said 120. Yeah. And there was over 400. There's 400 videos that we've done on YouTube. They're all embedded within this online resource. Now, they're not all top tips, of course. They're like showing people how to use their units. But it's there's some really good ones there. And I say we try and bring 2 new ones in every week. So there's quite a bit of production before our newsletter go out. So if you want to see all these top tips, you just go into our online resource, go to gpstraining.co.uk, click on online resource at the top, and then if you bought a unit from us or you subscribe to the online resource, just log in. Alternatively, you can just sign up and say £25 a year, or alternatively, give us a call here at GPS Training and we will sign you up to that and just take your credit card details over the telephone. It's good, isn't it? And it's good. It's a good resource, and these top tips are good.
The top tips are shorter videos, because we've got the Basecamp's a good example. We've got lots of long videos in Basecamp that show you doing something from start to finish, and I often get customers saying, well, I only need to know, and it might be a very small part of that video. That's why we're adding these shorter videos where it just goes straight to the point on something that you're trying to do in the software or on the unit.
And a lot of these have come from telephone calls. So somebody rings up and says, I'm having problems doing this. How do I do this? How do I get rid of my waypoints? So, and he puts the phone down after speaking and said, I'll do a top tip on that. So he writes a list. And then we, when we're a bit quiet, he goes off into the other room and does the top tips, and then we edit them, and we have a backlog, and then we'll get them online as we do the newsletter every week. So to finish off podcast number 8, many thanks for listening, and let us know if you'd like us to cover anything else in future podcasts. Give us a call, especially if you're thinking of buying a new GPS unit, and also have a look at both our physical GPS courses and also our webinars. Just go to gpstraining.co.uk and click on GPS Training Courses. Please do tell your friends about the podcast and also about GPS training. And don't forget, you can watch the recording of our podcast on our Facebook page, which is GPS Training UK, or on our YouTube channel, which is GPS Training. And don't forget to RST our podcast. Rate our podcast on iTunes. S is for subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you listen to. And T is tell your friends both about GPS training, about the GPS Training podcast. Please help us spread the word and let people know the work that we're doing. Many thanks to Andy for joining me on our 8th ever GPS Training podcast.
You.
And we look forward to doing this again, same time next month. Thanks for watching and listening.